The Los Angeles sun beat down on the tinted windows of the Bel Air mansion. Inside, Jason Statham, looking more bored than usual, surveyed the scene. Another celebrity birthday bash. Another gaggle of vapid socialites draped in designer dresses, sipping champagne and feigning excitement, he sighed, adjusting the earpiece that connected him to his security team. This was his life now? Jason Statham, high-end security consultant to the stars. It wasn't exactly what he envisioned after retiring from Special Forces. He'd pictured a quiet life, maybe a small vineyard in Tuscany, or perhaps teaching self-defense to underprivileged kids. Instead, he was stuck babysitting the pampered elite, ensuring their diamond-encrusted phones weren't snatched and their Botoxed faces remained unblemished. The pay was obscene, of course, enough to buy that vineyard 10 times over. But the bureaucracy, the endless paperwork, the sheer mind-numbing tedium of it all was slowly chipping away at his soul. He craved action, real action. Not the simulated danger of guarding a priceless painting, but the raw, visceral thrill of a genuine threat. He longed for the days of decisive action, of clear-cut objectives, of punching bad guys in the face without having to file a risk assessment report first. He just didn't know how close he was to getting his wish. That weekend started like any other. Statham was escorting a particularly obnoxious tech mogul to a charity gala, mentally calculating how many vintage Aston Martins he could buy with his paycheck. He had no idea that, across the country, a chain of improbable events was unfolding that would drastically alter the course of his life and the fate of the free world. It began with the president choking on a pretzel during a nationally televised baseball game. Heimlich attempts failed, and the nation mourned. The vice president, attempting to comfort the grieving first lady, tripped on a poorly placed rug and suffered a concussion so severe it left him in a permanent vegetative state, unable to fulfill the duties of the president. Next in line was the Speaker of the House, a notoriously health-conscious individual. He was found dead in his hyperbaric chamber, apparently suffocated by a rogue flock of pigeons that had somehow infiltrated the secure facility. The dominoes continued to fall. The president pro tempore of the Senate was struck by lightning while golfing. The Secretary of State developed a sudden and inexplicable allergy to oxygen. The Secretary of the Treasury choked on a fish bone while attending the pro tempore's funeral. It was a bloodbath of political proportions. A statistical anomaly so bizarre it defied all logic, and Jason Statham was blissfully unaware, still making small talk about NFT investments. The call came at 3 a.m. Statham, roused from a rare night of undisturbed sleep, answered with a growl. "Who the hell is this?" "Mr. Statham?" a frantic voice squeaked. "This is Agent Thompson from what's left of the government. We have a situation." That situation, as Agent Thompson delicately put it, was the complete and utter decimation of the U.S. presidential line of succession. And, thanks to a confluence of improbable events and a dusty, forgotten piece of legislation, Jason Statham was next in line years ago. While serving in Afghanistan, Statham had pulled a low-level government clerk, one Harold Perkins, from a burning Humvee. Perkins, eternally grateful, had secretly added Statham's name to a list of emergency presidential successors, citing a vague clause about individuals demonstrating exceptional leadership qualities in times of crisis. Statham vehemently protested. "I'm a security consultant. I punch people for a living. I know nothing about running a country." His pleas fell on deaf ears. The nation was in crisis, the Constitution was being stretched to its breaking point, and Agent Thompson was practically begging. He was bundled onto a private jet, flown to Washington, D.C., and sworn in as President of the United States in a hastily arranged ceremony held in a bunker beneath the Pentagon. He wore a borrowed suit that was 2 sizes too big and looked utterly bewildered. The world held its breath. President Statham's first week in office was a disaster. Policy briefings sounded like Martian to him. He signed executive orders based on gut feeling, not legal precedent. Much to the horror of his legal team, he addressed Congress with the same blunt, no-nonsense approach he used to disarm terrorists, resulting in a standing ovation from some and sputtering outrage from others. His advisors, a collection of seasoned political operatives and wide-eyed idealists, found themselves constantly trying to steer him away from diplomatic landmines and towards anything that wouldn't trigger an international incident. He found their endless meetings and carefully worded memos infuriating. "Look," he'd bark at them during one particularly tedious discussion about agricultural subsidies. Are we fixing the problem, or are we just talking about fixing the problem? Back in my day, we saw a problem, we punched it in the face. End of story. He missed the simplicity of it all, that he missed the clear lines of right and wrong, that he missed the satisfying thud of a fist connecting with a deserving jaw. He spent most nights staring out the window of the Oval Office, yearning for the days when his biggest concern was whether or not the champagne at a celebrity party was properly chilled. He was a fish out of water, a square peg in a round hole, and the sharks were circling. The agricultural subsidy debate was interrupted by a blaring alarm. Red lights flashed. The room fell silent. Agent Thompson, looking even more frantic than usual, burst in. "Mr. President, we have unidentified aerial phenomena. Multiple sightings. Confirmed hostile approach." Statham, finally looking interested, leaned forward. "Hostile, you say?" Then, it happened. Across the globe, shimmering, obsidian-black ships decloaked above major cities. New York, London, Tokyo, Moscow. They were enormous, impossibly sleek, and utterly silent. The world watched, transfixed in a mixture of awe and terror. Then came the communication. A cacophony of static, distorted clicks, and guttural roars filled the airwaves. IT was garbled, incomprehensible, a linguistic nightmare that sent chills down the spines of even the most seasoned linguists. The translation attempts were disastrous. One AI program interpreted the sounds as a demand for Earth's entire supply of cheese. Another thought they were requesting a synchronized global dance-off. The only consensus was that whatever they were saying, it didn't sound friendly. The prevailing interpretation, fueled by Cold War paranoia and Hollywood tropes, was that it was a declaration of war. The world held its breath, waiting for President Statham's response. This was the moment he was born for. The Joint Chiefs of Staff scrambled, diplomats frantically tried to establish contact with someone. The world teetered on the brink of interstellar war, but President Statham, in his element for the first time since taking office, had a different plan. He ignored the frantic calls for restraint. He bypassed the lengthy diplomatic protocols. He simply grabbed a microphone, stood before a hastily assembled press corps, and delivered a speech that would go down in history. "All right, listen up," he began, his voice calm and steady amidst the global panic. "These visitors seem to think they can waltz in here and start making demands. They think they can threaten us. They think they can take what's ours. Well, they've got another thing coming." He paused, a glint in his eye. "We're not going to negotiate. We're not going to appease. We're going to send them a message they won't soon forget. A message delivered with extreme prejudice." He leaned into the microphone. "To those aliens up there," he said, his voice dripping with steely resolve. "You've picked a fight with the wrong planet. Consider this your eviction notice. We're coming for you, and we're bringing the pain." The speech ended with a resounding "God save the Earth," and a mic drop that echoed around the world. Statham had declared war. With the world on a war footing, Statham realized he needed more than just military might. He needed a team that thought outside the box, that wasn't afraid to break the rules, and that could handle the sheer absurdity of the situation. First, there was Dr. Eris Thorne, a brilliant but eccentric astrophysicist whose theories about alien communication were considered borderline insane by the scientific community. Then came Glitch, a notorious hacker and conspiracy theorist who claimed to have been tracking the alien ships for years. Statham also called in his old Special Forces buddies. Mac, a demolitions expert with a penchant for explosions, and Lena, a master of infiltration and close-quarters combat. Finally, he recruited Emily Carter, a disgruntled weapons engineer who had been sidelined for suggesting unconventional modifications to existing military technology. His advisors were horrified. "Mr. President, these people are unconventional. We need experts, not crackpots." Statham just shrugged. "These are the people who can get the job done. Besides," he added with a grin, "I trust them more than I trust anyone in this town." He assembled his ragtag team in a secure bunker beneath the White House, ready to face the unknown. The fate of the world rested on their shoulders. Inside the bunker, chaos reigned. Thorne scribbled equations on white boards. Glitch tapped furiously at his keyboard. Mac tinkered with explosives. Lena sharpened her knives, and Emily argued with anyone who dared question her designs. Statham, surprisingly, was in his element, orchestrating the madness with a calm efficiency that belied the absurdity of the situation. Glitch, after days of relentless hacking, claimed to have found a pattern in the alien communication. "It's not a language, Mr. President," he announced, eyes wide with manic energy. "It's a frequency. A specific sonic frequency that resonates with the ship's cloaking device. Disrupt it, and the cloaking field collapses." Dr. Thorne, initially skeptical, ran the numbers and confirmed Glitch's theory. The misinterpreted declaration of war was actually a warning, a desperate attempt to communicate the frequency needed to stabilize their cloaking shields. Emily, seizing on this revelation, devised a plan to weaponize the frequency. She proposed modifying existing sonic weaponry to emit a concentrated burst of the disruptive frequency, effectively disabling the alien ship's cloaking devices and leaving them vulnerable to attack. It was a long shot, a Hail Mary pass born from misinterpreted data and a hacker's wild theories. But it was the only plan they had. Statham, never one to shy away from a gamble, gave the order. "Let's give it a shot. Time to punch some aliens in their invisible faces." Statham wasn't content to sit back and wait. He decided to take the fight to the aliens. He handpicked a team, including Mac and Lena, and commandeered a stealth bomber retrofitted with Emily's sonic weaponry. His advisors, predictably, protested. "Mr. President, you can't personally lead this mission. It's too dangerous." Statham just smiled. "Someone's got to show these extraterrestrials we mean business." The stealth bomber, affectionately nicknamed the Bouncer, soared through the night sky towards the alien flagship hovering above Washington, D.C. Inside, Statham, clad in a flight suit that looked remarkably like a tailored suit, prepared for action. Mac armed the sonic weapon, while Lena ran diagnostics as they approached the flagship. Glitch guided them through the alien vessel's defenses, feeding them real-time data from his laptop. Emily's modifications worked perfectly. With a deafening blast of sonic energy, the alien ship's cloaking field flickered and died, revealing its massive, menacing form. "Time to deliver the package," Statham said. Grabbing a modified grenade launcher, he aimed at the ship's exposed power core and fired. The resulting explosion shook the bomber, but it was enough. The alien flagship, crippled and exposed, began to descend. Earth had struck the first blow. With the alien flagship grounded, Statham ordered his team to prepare for a boarding operation. He wasn't about to let this opportunity slip. He wanted answers, and he wanted them now. Donning a makeshift armored suit, Statham led a squad of Marines into the downed alien vessel. What they found wasn't an army of invaders, but a group of terrified refugees. The aliens, tall and slender with luminous skin, huddled together, their large, sorrowful eyes filled with fear. Dr. Thorne, using a universal translator Emily had cobbled together, finally deciphered the garbled communication. It wasn't a declaration of war. It was a distress call. The aliens weren't invaders. They were refugees fleeing a far greater threat, relentless, parasitic species that had decimated their homeworld and was now hunting them across the galaxy. The initial threatening noises were actually desperate pleas for help, warning signals that had been misinterpreted due to the limitations of human technology. The frequency they had been broadcasting wasn't a weapon, but a signature needed to stabilize their failing cloaking technology. They had come to Earth seeking sanctuary, not conquest. Statham stared at the refugees, a wave of realization washing over him. He had almost made a terrible mistake. The news that Earth had attacked a group of innocent refugees sent shockwaves across the globe. Statham, facing international condemnation and a potential impeachment, had to act fast. He held another televised address, this time striking a more conciliatory tone. "All right, folks," he began, looking uncharacteristically sheepish. "Turns out we jumped the gun a little. Those visitors aren't here to conquer us. They're just looking for a safe place to park their spaceships and maybe borrow a cup of sugar." He explained the situation, acknowledging the misinterpretation and expressing his sincere apologies to the alien refugees. He then announced that Earth would offer them sanctuary and assistance in their fight against the parasitic species. Negotiating the terms of the alliance wasn't easy. The aliens, understandably wary after being attacked, were hesitant to trust humanity. But Statham, using his no-nonsense approach and a surprisingly effective dose of charm, managed to broker a truce. He offered Earth's resources, technology, and military might to help them defend themselves against the looming threat. He even managed a small smile. "Look," he said to the lead alien negotiator. "We messed up. But we're not afraid to admit it. And we're not afraid to fight for what's right, so let's team up and show these parasites what happens when they mess with Earth and its new friends." With the alliance forged, Statham faced an even greater challenge. Uniting a fractured world against a common enemy, he traveled the globe, meeting with world leaders, persuading them to put aside their differences and pool their resources. He used his newfound presidential authority, his blunt honesty, and the undeniable threat of galactic annihilation to forge a unified global defense force. He authorized the joint development of new weapons systems, combining Earth technology with alien ingenuity. He oversaw the training of soldiers from every nation, preparing them for a war unlike anything they had ever faced. He even managed to convince the United Nations to change its name to the United Planetary Defense Organization, UPDO, much to the amusement of Glitch, who claimed it sounded like a brand of shampoo. As the first wave of the parasitic species Armada approached Earth, a fleet of human and alien ships stood ready to meet them. Statham, standing on the bridge of the newly commissioned flagship, the USS Unstoppable, surveyed the scene. He knew the odds were stacked against them. He knew the battle would be long and brutal, but he also knew that humanity, united with its new allies, was ready to fight. He turned to his team, a grim smile on his face. "All right, people," he said. "Let's show these parasites what Earth is made of." The screen fades to black as the battle begins.